Hello, my name is Julia, and I'm 30 years old. For the past 3 years, I've lived with my in-laws, believing it would be a loving family environment. My husband John works abroad, sending money home sporadically, while I've been left to manage the household. What no one realizes or chooses to acknowledge is that it's my salary that keeps the lights on, pays the bills, and puts food on the table. Yet, despite my contributions, I've never felt like part of the family. It began with small comments from my mother-in-law, Martha. "You don't know how to run a house," she'd say, inspecting the kitchen and finding imaginary flaws. Her daughter, Samantha, wasn't any better, often reminding me that I wasn't truly one of them. For months, I endured this in silence, thinking it was temporary. After all, family is family, right? I believed that if I worked hard enough and showed them I was committed, they would eventually respect me. But respect was something I'd never earn in that house. One morning, as I was preparing breakfast, Samantha stormed into the kitchen, her face contorted with anger. "Where's Mom's necklace?" she demanded. "Which necklace?" I asked, genuinely confused. "The one with the sapphire pendant. It's missing." "Did you take it?" My heart dropped. Why would I take it? I've never touched her jewelry. Samantha ignored me, storming into the living room and dragging my mother-in-law into the accusation. "She must have taken it, Mom. Who else could it be?" Martha turned to me with cold eyes. "Julia, is this true?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Of course not. I would never steal from you." But my protests fell on deaf ears. Samantha's words carried more weight than my own, and before I knew it, they had decided I was guilty. "You have until tomorrow to leave," Martha said with finality. "I can't have a thief living under my roof." I was stunned. My hands trembled as I tried to process her words. "But I've been paying for everything in this house. The rent, the utilities, everything." Martha waved me off. "That's not enough to excuse theft. You should be grateful we let you stay here at all." Grateful? Grateful for what? For being treated like a servant? For sacrificing my peace of mind and finances for a family that didn't value me? I retreated to my room that evening, tears streaming down my face. John had no idea what was happening. He was thousands of miles away, trusting his family to treat me fairly. How could I tell him the truth? As I packed my belongings, I resolved to stay silent no longer. I would not let them strip me of my dignity. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of raised voices outside my door. It was Samantha and Martha arguing about something, but I already knew I was the topic of their conversation. They weren't even trying to keep their voices down. "She's probably hiding more things in her room," Samantha hissed. "We should search it before she leaves." My chest tightened with anger and disbelief. Not only was I being kicked out, but now they wanted to violate my privacy. I stood in front of the mirror, gripping the edge of the dresser for support, staring at my reflection. The woman looking back at me seemed tired and defeated, but deep down, I knew I wasn't the same timid person they thought they could bully. I wasn't going to let them treat me like a criminal. Opening the door with more force than I intended, I stepped into the hallway. Both women turned to face me, their expressions a mix of surprise and irritation. "If you're planning to search my room, you might as well get it over with now," I said, my voice sharp and unwavering. Martha folded her arms, her usual calm demeanor replaced by something harsher. "No one is searching your room. If you just leave quietly, we don't want trouble." "You've already caused enough trouble," Samantha muttered under her breath, but I ignored her. "You know what?" I said, stepping closer to them. "Go ahead. Search my room, my bags, whatever you want. You won't find anything because I didn't steal anything. But when you don't find what you're looking for, I hope you realize how wrong you are." Samantha hesitated for a moment, but Martha waved her off. "Just pack your things and go," she said coldly. "This isn't up for debate." It was then that I decided I wasn't going to waste any more words on them. They had made up their minds, and no amount of truth or logic would change that. I walked back into my room, shutting the door behind me with a calmness that even surprised me. While packing, I texted John, "I'm leaving the house today. Your mother and sister have accused me of theft. I'll explain everything later." Minutes later, my phone buzzed. John's response was immediate. "What? What are you talking about? I'll call you." His call came through almost instantly, but I ignored it. I couldn't bring myself to talk to him while my emotions were still raw. Instead, I focused on packing, making sure to take every receipt, bill, and document that proved I had been financially supporting the household all along. When I finally stepped out of my room with my suitcases, Martha and Samantha were sitting in the living room, pretending to have a conversation. Neither of them looked at me as I passed by. "Good luck finding someone else to pay the bills," I said, pausing at the door. Martha scoffed. "Don't worry about us. We'll manage just fine without you." I left without another word. The apartment I found was small but cozy. It wasn't far from my workplace, and most importantly, it was mine. For the first time in years, I felt free. No more biting my tongue or walking on eggshells around people who didn't respect me. Once settled in, I took immediate action, blocking every payment linked to my in-laws' household. Electricity, water, internet, everything. They would soon realize just how much I had been contributing. Meanwhile, I ignored John's increasingly frantic calls and messages. He was trying to fix things from abroad, but I didn't need him to fix anything. For too long, I had relied on him to mediate between me and his family. This time, I was in control of my own life. After a few days, John reached out through email, sending a long message filled with apologies and promises to come home immediately. But by then, it was too late. The damage had been done, and I wasn't ready to forgive him for leaving me to deal with everything on my own all these years. I replied simply, "I'm safe, and I'll let you know when I'm ready to talk." A week passed since I moved into my new place, and for the first time in years, I felt at peace. The silence was comforting. There was no one yelling, accusing, or draining me emotionally and financially. I had finally taken a step toward living life on my own terms. The realization that I had been carrying the weight of the household hit me harder each day. Without my contributions, I knew they would struggle. Part of me felt vindicated, knowing that they would eventually understand my worth, though it might be too late for them to apologize. 2 weeks after I left, John returned home. I heard about it through a mutual friend who mentioned he'd gone straight to his parents' house. Apparently, he had no idea I'd cut off all financial support. Curiosity got the better of me, and I waited for the fallout. Soon enough, my phone buzzed with his messages. "Why isn't the electricity working? What's going on? Mom said the internet is down. Julia, where are you? I need to talk to you." Each message gave me a sense of satisfaction. It wasn't out of malice, but because I had finally stood up for myself. I didn't reply. Let him figure it out. Eventually, John found my new apartment. One evening, as I was cooking dinner, I heard an urgent knock at the door. I knew it was him. When I opened it, he stood there, looking exhausted and desperate. "Julia," he said, his voice cracking, "why didn't you tell me things were this bad?" I folded my arms and leaned against the doorframe. "I did, John. Many times. You just didn't listen." He looked stunned, as if I'd slapped him. "That's not true. I've always tried to make things right." "No," I said firmly. "You always tried to smooth things over. There's a difference. You let your mother and sister treat me like an outsider, even though I was the one keeping your household afloat. You left me to deal with them alone." John ran a hand through his hair, clearly struggling to find the right words. "I trusted my family. I didn't think they would do this to you. And that's exactly the problem." I shot back, frustration rising. "You trusted them more than you trusted me." His shoulders slumped, and for a brief moment, I saw the regret in his eyes. "I'm sorry, Julia. I should have been there for you. Let me fix this." I shook my head, my resolve hardening. There's nothing to fix, John. I've moved on. I'm living my life now, and I don't need your family's drama dragging me down anymore. John tried to convince me to come back, promising to stand up to his family and make things right, but I had learned the hard way. I had given so much to people who didn't appreciate me, and I wasn't about to make that mistake again. I need time, John, I said, my tone softening slightly. I'm not saying we can't talk about this later, but right now I need space. Please respect that. He nodded, though his eyes were filled with disappointment. Okay, he said quietly, but I'll be here when you're ready. As I watched him walk away, I felt a strange mix of sadness and relief. Part of me had hoped he would fight harder for me, but deep down I knew I had made the right choice. I needed to stand up for myself. In the weeks that followed, I focused on rebuilding my life. I rediscovered hobbies I had put aside, made new friends, and threw myself into my career. Meanwhile, Martha and Samantha's financial troubles became the talk of the neighborhood. They had to sell off some of their belongings to pay the bills, and their once lavish lifestyle quickly fell apart. Whispers spread about how they had driven away the very person who had kept their household running. I didn't feel sorry for them. They made their choices, and I made mine. Now, every day in my little apartment felt like a victory. I woke up surrounded by peace and independence. For the first time in years, I felt like myself again. I didn't regret the sacrifices I had made. They had taught me a valuable lesson. I deserved better, and now I was living the life I always deserved. Months passed, and my life settled into a peaceful routine. Each day brought small victories: learning to cook my favorite meals without criticism, decorating my apartment the way I wanted, and waking up without the heavy weight of judgment. My world was quiet, but it was my world. I hadn't heard from John in weeks, though his messages occasionally popped up: apologies, updates on his family's crumbling situation, and pleas for me to talk. I didn't respond. It wasn't out of spite, but because I needed to heal without the constant reminder of what I had endured. Then one afternoon, as I was returning home from work, I saw a familiar figure standing outside my apartment building. It was Samantha. She looked nothing like the confident, self-assured person I had known. Her usually flawless appearance was replaced by a disheveled, desperate look. "Julia," she called, rushing toward me. "I need to talk to you." I considered ignoring her, but curiosity got the better of me. "What do you want, Samantha?" Her voice trembled as she spoke. "I'm sorry for everything. Mom and we were wrong. We didn't realize how much you were doing for us." I raised an eyebrow, waiting for her to continue. "You didn't know, or you just didn't care to see it?" I asked, my voice steady but sharp. Samantha lowered her gaze, her hands nervously twisting. "Things are bad, Julia. The bills are piling up, and John refuses to help until we apologize to you. Please, can you talk to him? Come back." The audacity of her words almost made me laugh. "You think I'd come back after everything you and your mother put me through? Samantha, I'm not your solution anymore. Figure it out yourselves." I didn't wait for her response. I walked past her, heading up the stairs and into the safety of my apartment, shutting the door firmly behind me to block out her desperate pleas. That evening, John called. "For once, I answered," he said, his voice cautious. "Samantha told me she went to see you." "She did," I replied, "and I sent her away." John sighed. "Julia, I know it's hard, but they're struggling. I've tried to tell them how wrong they were, but what?" I interrupted. "You think I should forgive them just because they're facing the consequences of their actions? They accused me of stealing, kicked me out, and treated me like I was nothing. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting." He fell silent for a moment. "I understand," he said finally. "I just want you to know I'm on your side now. Maybe you should have been on my side from the beginning." I replied, my voice soft but resolute. "I'm not coming back, John. I've found peace here, and I'm not giving that up for anyone. As time passed, I heard less and less about John's family. I assumed they were still struggling to pick up the pieces of their lives, but it was no longer my problem. I had spent enough time sacrificing for people who didn't appreciate me, and now I was free to focus on myself. I joined a local book club, made new friends, and even took a few classes to advance my career. My life was simple, fulfilling, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was truly thriving. One day, I received an unexpected email from John. It wasn't an apology or a plea for reconciliation. It was a thank you. He told me he admired my strength and wished me nothing but happiness. It was the kind of message I never thought I'd get from him, and though it didn't change the past, it brought me a sense of closure. I didn't reply, but I saved the email. It was a reminder of how far I had come and the life I had built for myself. Now, as I sit by the window of my cozy apartment, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink, I feel a deep sense of contentment. Life hasn't been easy, but I've reclaimed it on my terms. The woman I am today is stronger,